another episode of the Seeking Truth podcast. Today's episode is going to be continuing on from a previous episode that we've done about worshiping God through art and how worshiping God doesn't have to be the typical worshiping through music, which is what people traditionally associate the word worship with. And we kind of talked about how art can be another form of how we worship God and how we bring the presence of God or the image of God in front of people. Today is going to be adding on to that, but we're actually going to be going back to the traditional meaning of the word worshiping. And we're going to be talking about how we worship God through music and how that is another outlet or avenue for us to worship God, but likewise to allow other people to worship God through our actions and through the way that we're presenting music or playing music or singing. So I think no better place than to look at first is the Psalms. Now, the Psalms, if you're not familiar, is a whole book in the Bible which are songs. So the word psalm means song, and the Psalms are a collection of songs that people have written. Most famously was King David, who wrote a lot of psalms, and a lot of them were written when he was in that period of time where he was actually fleeing for his life from the king who wanted to kill him, and he was kind of hiding out and wrote a lot of psalms in that time. And the Psalms have a mixture of songs of praise, but they also equally have songs of sorrow and of not understanding and questioning God. And I think that's really, really powerful, because a lot of people think that we can only sing songs that uplift God and that aren't questioning God. But David was never concerned about looks and trying to portray that everything was good and perfect in his life. He just told it how it was, every emotion that he was feeling, every doubt. But he always brings the psalm back around to God and says, you know, even though I feel all these things, even though I don't understand and I'm doubting you, he always brings it back around to God's love for him and how he knows that God will never leave him. And I think reading those psalms can be really encouraging for us, for people who are in similar situations and feel that uncertainty and why is this happening and how can I trust you, God, or I feel distant from you, God, or I don't understand why this is happening. And reading those psalms that David's written in the exact same mental space as that and seeing how he still remained hopeful throughout. So I want to give you an example. This is just one that I opened up to. So Psalms 119, which is the longest psalm in the Bible. If we look at verse 81, it says, "My soul faints with longing for your salvation, but I have put my hope in your word. My eyes fail, looking for your promise. I say, when will you comfort me? Though I am like a wineskin in the smoke, I do not forget your decrees. How long must your servant wait? When will you punish my persecutors? The arrogant dig pits to trap me, contrary to your law. All your commands are trustworthy. Help me, for I am being persecuted without cause. They almost wiped me from the earth, but I have not forsaken your precepts. In your unfailing love, preserve my life, that I may obey the statutes of your mouth." So that was verse 81 to 88. And you can see how he goes through this conflict of, you know, my soul is fainting for the longing of your salvation. Like, why have you not saved me yet? My eyes fail, looking for your promise. When will you comfort me? But I will put hope in your word. You know, I do not forget your decrees. All your commands are trustworthy. So he's saying, even though I feel and my emotions are telling me that I'm sitting here, that the other people are getting away with sin and with disobedience, and I'm sitting here and I've always been obeying you. I know that you are trustworthy, and I know that I have hope in your word and that you will follow through on your promises and your decrees. And so he's saying, even though my feelings are trying to tell me that all hope is lost, I know that that's not the truth. And that's just one example of a psalm that he's written, and he's going through those emotions with us and kind of almost processing it as he's writing. And I think it's so powerful because we read these as words on a page without remembering that these are actually lyrics. And I wonder if you got the lyrics of one of your favorite songs and actually read the lyrics, how much more depth and meaning there is to those words written down on a page versus when you sing them and they're so lighthearted and you kind of don't really take them into your heart, or you don't really absorb them as much and process them. And likewise, I think it's really hard seeing this song written down on paper and not knowing the tune or how to sing it and how it went and how it sounded, whether it was upbeat, whether it was slow, whether it sounded mournful, whether it sounded fast, like it's hard to tell how it was intended to be written or sung or played. But yeah, I think it's really good to try and always remember that these are actually songs that have been written, and trying to view it in that light as someone is literally singing this to God. They're singing to God, I don't understand what's happening. Why are you choosing my enemies to succeed over me? But I'm trusting you above everything. I'm trusting that you're going to be good. I'm trusting that you're going to come through in your unfailing love. Like, how beautiful is that as a song? And that would then get stuck in your mind, and you could go around singing that, just like we do at the moment, going around singing songs in our car or getting them stuck in our heads. And we're singing these words that are so powerful because the melody is stuck in our head. And that can be the same as for these. That can be the same if we apply music to them. It can be the same. So coming back to our main point, so worship and praising God through music, it really has the power to build that intimacy with God and also to bring people into the presence of God. I was actually saved, and I mentioned this in a other podcast, that I was actually saved by encountering God through worship. So I'd gone to a worship night, a concert by the band Bethel, and it was in that concert that me, a non-Christian, but someone who was searching and had an open heart, encountered the presence of God. And it wasn't until that moment that I was saved, and that I genuinely then started to seek God over just having this idea that something might exist outside of me. And it just really highlights to me how important it is that when you're singing and you're praising God and you're worshiping God through music, how powerful of an impact that can have, to the point that years later, here I am now talking to you guys about God and sharing my experiences and my knowledge and the lessons that I've learned along my journey to other people who could then be impacted by that or impact others, and that all came from one band playing songs on a platform in front of thousands of people, and I was just one of them. So imagine the stories that any other person in that crowd could also share from that moment. And so never ever underestimate the power that you can have from playing music and singing and praising God. But it has to be for the right reason. It has to be from the right heart. It's more than just words that you're singing, and it's more than just chords that you're playing. It's about creating an atmosphere and a presence in the room that people can feel, that they can touch, that they can encounter. And it's in those moments when that is so tangible and real that there's this small crack between this world and the spiritual world. And that's when our soul connects with God, and we encounter something that is surreal and outside of ourselves, because we're almost suspended in this reality that this music creates. And again, it's not the music itself and it's not the words itself, it's the essence and the presence and the atmosphere that all those things are creating. And you don't always need lyrics to make a song powerful, but it's just about creating that atmosphere. It's about creating that presence for people to encounter God. And that's when you know if you're a worship leader, or you're a member of the worship team, or you're someone who just sings in church occasionally, or you're someone who just sings around your house. Every moment that you spend worshiping God, if it's from your heart, that's going to have a way more profound impact than someone who has trained and practiced all week, but the heart is not there. They're technically correct, but the passion isn't there. It's like a well-delivered dish, but the flavor isn't there. And it looks great, but it doesn't feel great. It doesn't taste great. It doesn't give you that full feeling and satisfaction in your life. And that is what it is like when you have someone who's singing from their heart versus singing from their head. And I really catch myself every time I'm even in church in the audience and I'm singing, and you get that vanity or that pride of like, oh, my voice sounds really good. I'm really good at harmonizing. I want to sing a little bit louder so people can hear me. But also you get this sense of pride of like, oh, I'm adding to the overall feel of this atmosphere because I'm now adding another layer of harmony onto the singing. And I notice if I get too caught in those thoughts that I start singing from my head, and I start singing more from trying to take a step back and interpret how other people would be hearing my voice and how they might be experiencing it. And I'm losing that connection with God. I'm losing that I'm singing for God. I'm singing to God. I'm singing about God now rather than I'm singing to God. And I notice when I catch myself and I'm like, no, stop. And I go back to singing from my heart, that my voice actually sounds better. I'm not over analyzing things. I'm going with my spirit. I'm going with where my body is naturally trying to take me to go in that moment. And I'm actually singing a lot better. And I feel like that is such a great parallel for exactly how God wants it. He wants it from our heart. He doesn't care how technical it sounds or how good it sounds. He just wants our heart. He wants it surrendered, our devotion to Him. And it's when we praise and worship Him through those things, that's when we encounter Him. But likewise, that's when we're going to be able to worship Him better. And the people around us are going to sense a quality difference in the way we're playing, in the way we're singing, because it's from the right reasons. Did you know that even being next to someone, you can feel when they're having a genuine encounter with God versus they're not, right? You can feel like when they're encountering the Holy Spirit and they've kind of got this essence, this aura about them, and you can see they're so in the moment, they're just not even caring about who's around them, what they look like, who's watching, who's next to them, and you can just see they're so surrendered to God in that moment. And it's honestly captivating, and it draws you in, and that again is that difference, that tangible difference of when you're actually fully surrendering and worshiping God in that moment, and you're not thinking about man's opinion, but you and God are having an intimate one-on-one conversation. People around you can sense that, and they get drawn into that as well, and they're able to join in their own one-on-one conversation with God at that moment. So even the way that you praise God can send a signal to those around you and influence those around you to seek God for themselves too. And so again, if you're going to analyze that too much, you're going to then draw yourself back to the worldly view of, okay, I'm worshiping God like this, so people are going to perceive me this way. And I know you're doing it from the right heart of wanting them to encounter God, but it's actually about genuinely surrendering, because it's only when you do that you carry the presence of God and His Spirit, because that's when you are encountering Him for yourself. God is a God of creativity, right? He longs for our creativity. He longs for us to try new things, to explore the world, to do things in a way that others can connect to as well. So there's no point in making the most crazy, unique, out there music if people listen to it and they don't connect to God, they can't understand it, they don't connect with the lyrics, the meaning behind the song, the chords are all over the place and hard to follow. And the point of music is to explore and play, but to do it in a way that's still carrying that essence of God. People need to be able to connect with the lyrics and the meaning behind the song. How many songs, though, on the radio do you know all the lyrics, right? How many times do you listen to a song on the radio and you're like, I know every single lyric? Very rarely. But you still like a song when you listen to it, because there's something in that song that's calling to you, whether it's a happy and upbeat song and it's really encapsulating that mood for you in the moment, that you're really happy and upbeat, or maybe it's happy and upbeat and you're feeling really low and you need something to kind of uplift you. Or maybe it's a really sad and a lonely song and it's saying all the things that you just can't express with words, and the music is just getting to you, right? Music is very emotive. It changes people's mood, changes people's arousal level. It draws people in. Like, think about a movie without music, right? How much less scary is a scary scene without scary music, or exciting or thrilling? The music is there to add that tension, to build the heartache, to make you hide your eyes with fear. And music without words does these things. It doesn't need words, but it needs to have that presence and that emotion behind it. And so when you're wanting to be people to connect with God rather than just become excited or scared or happy, when you're wanting them to connect with God, the emotional tone that it needs to carry is seeking God and the presence of God. And that should be really what's driving you creating your music to share with others, is that emotion. It's okay as well to sing about your doubts. It's okay to sing and process of, I don't understand, this doesn't make sense. You can see in Psalm 44, this is a classic example. This song was written by the sons of Korah, so it doesn't explicitly say who wrote it other than the sons of Korah. But basically Psalm 44 is all about these people who feel that God has left them to be defeated by this other city or this other tribe, and they're calling out saying, God, like, we feel like we've done nothing wrong. We feel like we've been faithful to you. We feel like we haven't forgotten you and we've been worshiping you. Like, why is this happening? And literally the whole psalm is them asking God that question. They said, verse 20, if we had forgotten the name of our God or spread out our hands to a foreign God, would God not have discovered it, since he knows the secrets of our heart? Yet for your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. So they're saying, God, like, despite us not worshiping other gods, and you know that, you know our hearts, here we are being sheep to be slaughtered. And the psalm, I find this the really interesting part, the psalm actually never fully resolves. So it doesn't actually say what the outcome of that was. But I love the last line of this psalm. Verse 26, rise up and help us, rescue us because of your unfailing love. And it just always reminds me that these people, they literally feel like we don't understand what's happening. God, we haven't betrayed you. We haven't worshipped someone else. We haven't turned our hearts away from you. Why are you doing this? Surely you should know our hearts and that we've been faithful to you. And then the last line is, you will rescue us because of your unfailing love. Like, we still trust that despite all of this, you have unfailing love for us. And so they never ever waver from that truth. And I love that all the Psalms tend to have that ending that kind of finishes on that note of you love us, and we may not understand what's happening, and we may actually be kind of arguing with you in a way about, God, why is this happening to us? Have you forgotten about us? But they always end it, or always have somewhere in there about, your promises. You won't break your promises with us. You do love us. I do trust you, God. I do trust you'll come through. And I love that psalm to read and battle with that, of how those people must have felt in that moment, and yet to still have such unfailing trust in God of his love for them. So this is a little bit of a shorter podcast today, but I really feel that what I'm trying to say, it doesn't need fluffiness about it, that it is just hitting hard into the point that we can impact other people around us through worshiping God. And music is such a easy way to worship God, in that it's easily accessible. Everyone has a voice with them. Doesn't matter if you can't play any other instrument or if you're a terrible singer, you still have a voice, and it's still an instrument that you can use to worship God, and that you can use to influence the people around you and bring them into the presence of God. And if you can play instrument or instruments on top of that, then you have even more tools in your tool bag to bring people to God. And that's incredible. But it's coming from the right heart. Yes, it's great to be technically good and technically correct in your playing, but it's the heart behind your playing that's going to bring people into the presence of God. It's the heart behind your playing that people are going to connect to, and is going to help them experience God in that moment. So don't get caught up on the lyrics. Don't get caught up on the melody being perfect, on the harmonies being all thought out. Don't be caught up on having to play every note perfectly. Get caught up on whether your heart for God is in the right place before you start playing, before you start singing. That the purpose that you're up there or in front of people is to bring people closer to God, not to bring them closer to you. That they're to worship God, not to worship you, and not to worship your skills or your value, but they're to worship God and God's creativity and God's gifts. So I want to end this one here. I hope you guys have a fabulous week, and I hope to speak to you all next week. Bye.